It's the Monday Morning Show, where old-fashioned podcasting meets even older me. Today is August 15th, 2019. I'm the incredibly old guy hosting, Ken LaSalle, novelist and writer of other things as well, from kenlasalle.com. And this is Talking Shit. If anyone had told me when I was 17 years old that I would not only be writing, but also recording a podcast about growing old, I would have said, that's not possible. It's just last week. No, not buying it. Well, I had to try. The fact is, it does almost feel like last week. You know, if I forget about all the mistakes I've made since then. There have been a few. To be honest, I'm glad I'm not 17 any longer. Or 20. Or 30. Or 40. Okay, maybe 40. I'd take 40. The thing is, I've heard this story since I was a kid about how much aging sucks. You know,
youth is wasted on the young.
Enjoy it now before it all goes away.
Either through movies or TV shows or just from really depressing people I've known, I've had this picture of aging painted for me that looks, well, pretty grim. Disease and frailty and losing everyone you know as they all die off around you. Osteoporosis, heart disease, arthritis, wrinkles, baldness, no sex drive, you can't eat what you want, eventually poverty, misery, and death. Aging. We really shit all over it in America. And I don't know about you, but I'm not a fan. To be honest, it makes me downright nervous. But now I'm 53 years old. Can you believe that? I'm going to be 54 in October. You certainly wouldn't call me young anymore. Hell, you might put me in middle age, but odds are you'd probably say I was old. A young old, to be sure. Yeah, old. Like the 19-year-old version of adult. And I'm here to tell you that aging gets a pretty bad rap. So let's talk some shit about growing old. Not just growing older either. Everyone grows older. Babies grow older and they don't have to contend with AARP shit flooding their mailbox. The real one. Outside. No, I'm talking about growing old. The prelude to death. The big write-off. Irrelevance in a cup. It's time to talk some shit. When I turned 40, back in the 17th century, a woman I knew told me, "Oh, sure, you might feel fine now, but you just wait until you hit 50. You just wait." And then she laughed like the Wicked Witch of the West. Don't contradict me, I know what I'm talking about. I'm old and probably senile. And you know what? She was absolutely right. If you're worried about what age you'll first encounter a good taste of death, I mean, like a hearty spoonful, just wait until you hit 50. Now, everything is going to depend on how you treated your body up until that point and how much luck you happen to have in the genetics category. I'm fortunate enough to have a mother with very good genes. No kidding, at nearly 80, she's in better shape than I am. So my 50th year didn't hold an awful lot of surprises. Let's see, I could no longer run or jog because arthritis was found in my neck. Not jogging regularly sent my weight and blood pressure to new, previously inconceivable levels. But is my tune changed? Oh no, my tune remains the same. Apologies to Led Zeppelin. Because you get through those bad times. You weather those storms. And then you start to see growing old as not an entirely bad thing. Actually, talking shit about growing old wasn't even on my list of topics for this show. I would never have imagined talking about growing old because I don't really see myself as the right person for this job. You want someone who talks to you about growing old to be someone who has a full, complete life behind them, with a great, big, extended family, and a job they retired from, and a house they finally paid off the mortgage to, and one entire life they can wrap up with a bow and say,
"This is what I'm looking back on in my golden years."
What do you mean that person doesn't exist? Then again, maybe I am the right person for this job. Or at least right for 2019. Because we find ourselves in a world very different from the one in which I grew up. Or old. That guy I mentioned before, I don't know if we could find him. With this in mind, here are my credentials as an aging person. I don't have a big family. I was born into a broken home that just seemed to break even more as I got older. I started with a mom and a brother and a sister, and we didn't care for each other all that much. Then I found my father and stepmom and 2 brothers that helped put things into perspective a bit. I thought I would grow old with this family in my life, this great big extended family, but then my dad died. And then my stepmom died. And this was all it took to split us all apart, and we scattered to the 4 winds. Now I have my mom and my brother Richard in my life, and that's about it. I have a wife, but no children. I have an ex-wife somewhere too, with no children as well. I don't have a lot of friends. Nope. I'm not that guy. I've worked more jobs than you can count, or that I can count, because I'm old. Because I hated every one of them. Okay, not every one of them, but most of them. I wanted to be a writer. That was my love. I wanted to chart my own course. And this only started 7 years ago. For more than 28 years, God, nearly 30 years, I toiled for other people's benefit, always wishing for my chance. But to take that chance meant giving up all of the security one wants as they near old age. You know, financial security. I went broke. So, my retirement is for shit, but I am fulfilled. So, there is that. But if you want a guy who worked hard at a job all of his life until he retired, well, that's my father-in-law. I'm not that guy. I never paid off a mortgage, though I've owned 2 homes. I think I've only paid off 2 of the many vehicles I've owned before they were wrecked or traded in. I've had the privilege of living with many cats and dogs, many TVs and VCRs, DVD players, that kind of thing. And this doesn't happen very often, but in the script that I have written here, it says no bow. B-O-W. No bow. I have no idea what that means, but I can assure you that that is accurate. I do not have a bow. I really wish I knew what I was trying to write there. Anyway, no bow, no complete life. My life has been a race. A rather high-speed race from one responsibility to another, one fight to another, one loss to another. There weren't a whole lot of moments to reflect, or appreciate, or breathe. And that's fine by me. That's my life. That's okay. Because in 2012, my wife asked me why I never ran away and joined the circus. Why hadn't I taken my chance? Why didn't I believe in myself? She did. Why didn't I? I was nearing 50, and the world was about to change. So growing old for me isn't about leaving things behind. It isn't about endings. I began backpacking in my 50s. I began appreciating life in my 50s. And as I said, I never imagined I would be here talking to you about growing old. Not until I lived through this week. The last few days have been a lesson for me in growing old, taught to me by the universe itself. Broken into 3 acts, as any good story should be, for your edification and possible amusement, here they are. Act 1. My wife Vicky and I have a routine we like to follow that involves watching lots of Bob's Burgers and playing our own version of MST3K with it. We throw in jokes and asides and have a great time simply being together. And I was sitting on the love seat the other night in my usual spot when Vicky called on her way home. And I was gleefully anticipating our evening of Bob's MST3K when... You know how you're on the phone sometimes and you have to change ears? Well, I did. And Vicky's talking into my ear, and I can hear her very well because she's not shy or withdrawn around me, and I wouldn't want her to be. I switch ears. She's whispering. Switch back. She's yelling. Oh my God. We're losing our hearing. We never even noticed it, but we're losing our hearing. At least, these are the thoughts going through my head. Now, Vicky's hearing hasn't been all that great since her head-banging days, both musically and physically. But mine has never been an issue. Somewhere in those 15 years we've been together, age caught up to us. I thought I would be upset by this revelation, angry at the years or my own failing ears or something that rhymes with it. But that wasn't the case at all. My heart swelled. I nearly cried. You see, this is what I've wanted since my first marriage. You never get married thinking you'll divorce, and I had always believed I would grow old with my first wife. Then, after that clearly wasn't the case, I thought all of this was lost to me. When you divorce someone you love, it's tough. The loss you feel cannot be underestimated. I felt down in my heart that I would never have that, or even a chance at that. And then, later that night, as Vicky and I were discussing our mutual deafness, well, I realized she had the perfect excuse now, and mine wouldn't be too bad either. I'm sorry I didn't hear you. I'm deaf. Mostly, though, I felt this connection unlike any I'd felt before, this incredible intimacy. I can't really describe it. The feeling of utter unalonedness, you know? I don't care if that's not a word. Act 2. When I was a child, I would often spend time at Miles Square Park in Fountain Valley. It wasn't far from home, and it was free, which was incredibly important to my mom, who was supporting 3 kids on her own. Now, you don't need to know Miles Square Park to understand this story, because I can tell you that the park was built in 2 sections. The old section was there when I was little, and it was easily large enough to entertain a child of 9 or 10 or even 11. But then they built the new side, or what I think of as the new side. And I found in there a playground with a giant rocket ship. This rocket ship was built mostly of metal bars, metal everything. It was the 1970s. You walked into the first floor, took a stairway up to the second floor, and if you could climb up through a gap in the metal bars at the top, which I could do from a young age, you could then sit in the very top of the rocket that nobody meant kids to hang out in, but guess what? I used to climb in there so often as a young teenager. As a young adult, I would walk there with my friend Tim, and we would climb up and smoke cigarettes and talk about life back when life felt scarier to us. And when I walked there this weekend and found that rocket ship missing, gone, no longer there. I felt like a part of my life had been ripped right out of my chest. And I sat down across from that playground, the new playground, and I looked at where that rocket wasn't. And I looked, and I looked. And it occurred to me that what I was looking at was just another part of life. You see, that's what age does for us. It's a gift that age provides that we can't find when we're younger. Perspective. The Buddhists tell us that all life is suffering. Life is loss. You lose people you love. You lose your hearing. You even lose your playgrounds. But see, that's okay. Because I was never going to play in that playground again anyway. Change is fine because we couldn't live without it. And yes, growing old makes you less relevant because, now this may be a little difficult to internalize, you're not needed anymore. As a biological being, your job is done once you procreate. And as someone who didn't, I let down my biological imperative years ago. I shouldn't even be on this planet. But I don't feel that loss of relevance. I don't get that sense of the world moving on without me because I create my own world. I live a life of continuing book series and new projects. I just received a soft yes from an actress to appear in an upcoming project. Things are happening. I can let go of my playground. I can let go of my hearing. I don't need those things. I have a life that took me a lifetime to assemble. And as tenuous as that life is, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to love it until it's gone, which is until I'm gone. And I'm okay with that. Except for Act 3. This all started at the beginning of the year when my doctor said I might have rheumatoid arthritis. Well, I finally got in to see a rheumatologist this week. Can't beat that Obamacare now that Trump has fucked it up. And found out that A, it might not be rheumatoid arthritis. Score one for me. B, however, is that I am retaining water in my ankles. Got a pretty good edema going there. No pain, no problems. Hell, I walk 5 or 6 days a week, and some of those days are spent out on the trail. Maybe I can't run, and maybe I can't jog. But when that doctor started poking at my ankles, I almost thought he was going to say I had to stop walking as well, or stop hiking, backpacking. I might not be the best backpacker around. In fact, there's some literature out there that strongly suggests otherwise, but that doesn't mean I love it any less than anyone else. And I find the idea of no hiking and no backpacking intolerable. But at the same time, we know this is what's coming. We know what age brings. You know, a recent article on WebMD observed that frailty may not be as much a part of aging as we have thought. Still, I've had years to get used to this idea that maybe my body can't do all the things I want it to do for my entire life. When I was a child, I used to think about the future and imagine me at 10 or 15 or 20. What would it be like to be an adult, I would wonder. And then I would project myself further into the future to my 30s and my 40s and 50. I was sure I'd be dead by the time I hit 50. 50 years on one planet? Not possible. But here I am. And I have learned that all of this is tolerable. All of the senseless inconsideration of aging, that we have to live inside of a biological construct that falls apart so damned easily. With love and patience and acceptance and peace. Growing old happens long after you've grown up. Otherwise, it's just aging. Growing old is a pain in the ass. But it's your pain in the ass. And you can be bitter and angry about it, or you can take care of it and show it some love. You can enjoy it. I know I am. And I think my life as an old man will be better than my young life because I have the benefit of those years. And I've learned it's not so bad. And thank you for listening to me talk a little shit at you. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I know that we must talk about these issues if we're ever going to find understanding. Until next time, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and let's make this world a better place.